Fire Call, the fire safety show with Division Chief Jim Sideras.
Hi, my name is Division Chief Jim Sideras, and you are watching Fire Call. Hey, we're going to take you back behind the scenes of Sioux Falls Fire Rescue, and this show is just going to be rescue-licious. We got trench rescue. We're sitting in a major hazmat scene here. We got all kinds of stuff going on, so sit back, tell the kids to be quiet, grab some food to eat, spend some time with Sioux Falls Fire Rescue, and we're going to get to some shout-outs and answer some of those questions that you're going to have. Now, we're getting these shout-outs from all over the country, including foreign countries. So if you want to get your shout-out, if you want to ask your question, wait till the end of the show and we'll show you our website. You can go on, type in your question, and if we answer your question, we'll send you a super secret surprise. Our first shout-out is from Great Falls, Montana. He wants a shout-out. He wants two shout-outs. He wants a shout-out to Great Falls Fire Rescue and also a shout-out to one of our firefighters, Kurt Rangall, who's from up around Great Falls. This next shout-out is from California. Matthew lives in San Jose, California. He wants a shout-out to San Jose Fire. So this one's going out to all the men and women of San Jose Fire. Our last shout-out before we get to the questions is going to be from John. John lives in New Market, Indiana. He wants a shout out to the guys of New Market Fire Department and Southwest Rescue Services. So I hope you're watching so you get your shout out. Now we got a bunch of stuff going on today, and it's just been this show is just kind of chaotic running around. So we're going to jump out and see what's going on and take you back behind the scenes of Sioux Falls Fire Rescue. In this world of WMDs and terrorism, everybody, and I mean every department, has to be concerned about being ready to handle weapons of mass destruction. Even in South Dakota, middle of the heartland, we got to be prepped up. So we're doing a pretty big drill here. We're just starting off. We've got Sioux Falls Fire, we got PD, and we also have teams from the Army in, so that if it were to be a WMD, that they can come in with their support teams and work with us to make sure everything goes like clockwork. These are major incidents that happen, and you don't want to start trying to learn this stuff the day it happens. You want to be practicing and well prepared. So we're starting to set up a drill here, and you can see we got a lot of stuff going on, and we're going to go down and jump down and talk to some of the major players and figure out just how the Army interacts with the fire department. You can see now the operation is finally starting to get underway with people in suits, and they're doing some work down here, a lot of strenuous work. And I'm going to introduce you to Captain Murphy. Captain Murphy is with the Army National Guard, and you're with a very special team. And could you just kind of tell our viewers, what actually are you, the unit you're with, and what's the importance of the unit?
Absolutely, Jim. I'm with the 82nd Civil Support Team. We're a WMD, or a terrorist response type unit. Today, as you see behind you, we're doing a joint mission with the Sioux Falls Fire Department and hazmat team. And what we're doing is basically training for any potential future type operations that may occur in the future.
Now, do you go anywhere in the state? Do you have a region that you travel to?
We do have a region. We can respond anywhere in the state. And that's exactly why we're here today, to forge relationships with folks all around the state.
Because you are, so our viewers know, you are way on the other side of the state. So this is a nice operation. We can work together.
That's correct, yes. We come from Rapid City. It takes about 5.5, 6 hours of driving with our vehicles once called out. And now we set up our operations, and we're doing a joint mission to see what's going on in this building. We've got some intel that says there's some bad stuff in the basement. Someone came out with blisters on their hands and face, and we want to try to find out what it is that caused that.
And you have all that capability of doing this and even more.
That's correct.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the other stuff that you brought with you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
In past episodes of Fire Call, you've seen how Sioux Falls Fire Rescue does decon. Well, this is a new way of doing it, and this is what the Army is using. It's a much more sophisticated program, a lot of neat equipment. Captain Murphy, kind of talk about some of this equipment. This is a little more, much more sophisticated than what normal fire departments probably have available to them.
Yeah, the unique thing about this is we have our decon line separated in two separate units. the one you see in front of you, that you see the slide. This slide's for an emergency type situation.
So you flop someone down and run them right through a conveyor belt.
Right. If there's one of the guys that are downrange, down in that building, and they become contaminated or incapacitated, we can run them through here and get them through quickly. The other part, or the personal or regular, what we call regular decon, is after they're done with their mission, downrange mission, they come through and scrub their hands, their feet, and they get washed down by decon personnel to make sure that there are no contaminants that could affect the people in the cold zone or the area that's not contaminated.
Sure. And then once we transport them, they're fairly clean, so we don't have to worry about deconning hospitals and some of those issues.
That's correct.
Now this is kind of cool. This whole rubberized system you got basically contains all the runoff, so we don't have to worry about it getting in sewer systems, septic systems. When this starts to fill up, then you drain it and tanker it out, basically?
That's correct. We have containers and pumps that are in here, so as we contain the contaminant or potential contaminant, we can take it off-site and not contaminate landfills or the water or drinking supply in the community.
I want to see some of the other equipment you have here, too.
Okay, let's go take a look.
Now, when someone's decon, some of the other things you talked about doing is you have your own lab. Tell me about the lab.
The lab that we have is called the ALLS, what we call the Analytical Lab.
Okay. And
we have 2 operators that you can see here. Captain Starr is the main operator. She is the NIMSO, or the Nuclear Med Science Officer. She's the one that runs the lab. Mm-hmm. From the information and things that they gather downrange, they take that through decon and process that chemical or agent or compound through this lab.
With this incident, we had one of our firefighters got the substance on his glove. They would take that all the way up to here and be able to analyze what was on the glove?
That's correct.
Wow.
They could double bag that, put it in an overpack, bring it here in a safe environment. You also see Sergeant Kelly Crane works in the lab as well, and they have the tools, a glove box, to safely analyze to see what is going on.
That is amazing. Now, you brought a ton of gear with you. What's this particular trailer do?
This trailer here is actually used for the survey folks.
Survey folks mean the people going out picking up the samples.
That's correct.
Okay.
The ones that are going downrange. As you see, the gentleman in the hat is our recon NCO. He's the one.
He looks sassy too, doesn't he?
Oh, he is. He's sassy. Sergeant First Class Mike Wyrick. He's the one that's talking with the folks downrange, the only one, to make sure that there isn't a lot of traffic on the downrange channel. He's making sure that they're being safe. He knows exactly where they are. That board that you see there is actually the blueprint that was drawn up, so he knows exactly where they're at all times.
Okay, great. Now, is he hardwired into them, or are they radio?
It's radio.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all secure radio. What you see next to us here is actually the operations center, or the TOC. That's where all information flows for the incident through this vehicle here, this trailer. And as you can see here, that's the operations officer. He's the one that is in charge of this area and making sure that he gets all the information, so he knows exactly what's going on for the commander and knows exactly at all times what's happening in the incident.
So this is much like our command post. You have your own command post, and then our two talk to each other.
That's correct.
One of the last trucks we're going to take a look at is a communications truck. Now, Captain Murphy said we got to be careful. He said if we said anything confidential, Sergeant Todd's going to kill us. So we have to be really cautious about this one. Now, what does this do? You got a big satellite link-up, hookup? Is this what, to see the internet? What are we doing?
Well, there's a lot of things that are happening here. This is one of the most important pieces of equipment that we have on the team, because without this, the operation doesn't happen. So I don't murder it. I want to make sure Todd can explain this, so I'll pass off the question, and he can explain kind of what's going on here.
Hey, directly behind me there's a 2.5-meter satellite dish that we set up when we arrive on scene, and through a military satellite we're able to get phone lines and internet connectivity.
So you can go anywhere in the U.S. and you're on phone lines automatically and internet service?
Exactly.
I was just joking. I didn't know you could really do that.
I actually used 14 of these trucks down at Hurricane Katrina when all the cell towers and the trunking system went down. And this is what kind of gave the ICs in the different parishes a link out. We usually, on an incident, we usually run about 15 to 20 laptops, and we can get 4 phone lines pushed out of this truck here.
Sir, because I know they said you can just drop off a laptop to us in our command post, and those are all hooked up wirelessly on scene?
Yes. We can do either wireless or we can do hard cable with the Cat 5 cable running. You see a lot of cables running all over here. So
now I know someone's going to ask me this question, so I'm going to ask you right now. How do you find the satellite when you're sitting out in the middle of South Dakota?
There's a little black box sitting right there, and that's got squiggly lines on it. I had to go to school for about 120 hours to learn how to read squiggly lines so I can stick the right satellites out. When you're scanning across the sky, there's numerous satellites, and there's a footprint of squiggly lines that we know, memorize that, we know that's our bird.
So you're actually hooking up to one specific satellite, following us as we orbit around the sun, essentially.
Exactly.
That is way cool.
Exactly.
Now, you also got this thing bordered off. What's with that? Is that for security or is that for safety?
It's for safety. There's about a 30 to 40 foot safety barrier zone in front from RF radiation.
Oh, that's nice. Thanks.
Yeah. If you're planning on having kids, stay away from the front of the dish.
Oh, okay. I know, so we were getting all kinds of wild radio stations when we were in front.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Sergeant Todd.
You bet. You bet.
Well, Captain Murphy, I really want to thank you for coming out and bringing your team and talking to us. These kind of events really show the importance of that seamlessly integrated system involving military and also the public service fire departments. And we really appreciate what you do for us.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. I know it's a great opportunity for both the 82nd and the Sioux Falls fire folks to work together, because you don't want this the first time to be the last time we operate together, especially when an incident like this, if it were real world, it's nice to know who you're working with and to know their names by name, and it just makes the operation go that much smoother.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now let's cut out of here and on to our next story. This next question comes from Jamie, and Jamie lives in Nova Scotia, Canada. Jamie wants to know, what's one of the most useful pieces of equipment we have? Well, that question can go a lot of different ways, Jamie. If we're talking about fires, if we're talking about extrication, if we're talking about trench rescue. Today we're talking about trench rescue, and crews from Sioux Falls Fire Rescue are practicing trench rescue. This is a very dangerous activity when it happens because things can go wrong. They train a lot for this. It's a complicated task, and we have one of the best trench rescue trainers in the country, bar none, Travis Tom. Trav, how you doing?
Good.
Okay, here's the word. Give us some insight on some of the most useful pieces of equipment. When we start first, before we even start talking about equipment, give us a background on trench rescue. When something happens, is this a common thing that can happen? What causes these trenches to cave in?
Just depends on the ground soil right now in Sioux Falls. We're a wet soil right now.
Wet. What's that mean?
Well, right now we've had a lot of rain, so our soil is very heavy in the top parts. If trenches have been open for a while now, we can be looking at sloughs or cave-ins.
So they'll just cave in on someone?
Actually, one of our training trenches we dug earlier this week has actually sloughed on us. We actually shored that this morning.
So when these cave in, is it a gradual thing, or just all of a sudden the walls just come in and catch these workers unexpected?
Yeah, mostly unexpectedly. If you're watching the soil, it will give you a few signs, but when it happens, it's very quickly.
And once they're down, it's not like we're going to be able to just jump down in this hole and yank them out.
No, well, the first thing we want to preach to our guys is taking care of ourselves and making the trench safe for us to enter.
Okay.
And that's what we're doing right here.
So now useful pieces of equipment. That's what Jamie wants to know about. What are the key pieces of equipment that we have to have with these trench rescues to make them safe?
Well, right now what we're using is we're using a strong back, which is just a couple pieces of plywood.
So the big red squares of plywood are strong backs.
Yeah, a fancy name for a couple pieces of plywood is a strong back.
Okay.
With a 2x10 hook to it. And all that is actually just occupying space behind the trench, and what we're doing is trying to transfer the load from one side of the trench to the other.
Okay.
Through our strong backs and our struts. On this trench here, we're using air struts, but we also can make them out of wood.
Now, air struts, another useful piece of equipment for Jamie.
Yep.
How do the air struts work, and what do they do?
These are the ones we're using today are Paratech pneumatic air strut. All they use is 250 pounds of air in this particular application, and it's shot with a SCBA bottle that we carry on our
truck. And then that strut just pushes against the sides of the walls and holds them apart?
Yep. Depending on the strut, it needs to either be locked by hand or some of them automatically lock.
Now, I got another question. You had talked earlier about, we'll talk about the whalers, and we're actually looking at, you're testing a prototype whaler that might be used across the country.
Yeah, it will be used across the country. This whalers here, these are...
Can we take a look at it?
Yep.
Now, what exactly is a whaler? Another fancy term. Yeah. What's it mean?
All a whaler is it enables us to span a strong back or a piece of plywood.
Okay.
It gives us a 4-foot space if we need to get rope systems in to lower or raise the victim out, or equipment in for digging.
Now, the old way of doing it, when we were doing this just not too long ago, was lots of lumber, lots of lifting, a lot of manual work to do this.
Yeah, our old system, and we still have them today, are 8x8 Douglas fir wood.
Okay.
It takes about 4 guys to carry them.
How heavy are the new whalers?
The new whalers, 52 lineal feet of the whalers weighs about 500 pounds versus they're about half.
Okay.
Half the weight, and they come in 8-foot, 6-foot, 4-foot chunks, so make them manageable for one person.
So no more nailing?
Yes and no.
Okay.
We do need to put some wood into these just because Paratech they're so new that Paratech hasn't got all the pieces made for it yet.
Okay.
So.
Now, how did we get picked to be one of the sites?
The sales reps stopped by it quite a bit, and we got to talking, and we do quite a bit of training in USAR, and Paratech likes to have us try stuff out. We take pictures, we send them back.
So they're getting real-time feedback on different products.
Yep, they are for sale, but they're taking our advice and what we like about them and what we don't like about them.
You were talking about how fast these can cave in. What happened on this trench that was going to be your practice trench?
Well, it still was our practice trench. We just had to change our tack on it. What happened here is this is what we call an extra deep trench for us. Anything 10 to 15 feet is extra deep. Mm-hmm. And what happened is at about 8 foot we ran into a different type of soil. Looking down at there,
Sure.
You can see the sand.
Yep.
And the rains that we've had in the past couple of days actually ate away that sand, and actually the whole face of this trench sloughed off about 2.5 feet.
Okay, now a lot of dirt fell in there. What's dirt weigh? What's a cubic foot of dirt weigh?
A cubic foot of dirt weighs about 100 pounds.
Okay, so how many cubic feet do you figure you got dumped there?
Oh, I don't know. You got a couple yards there, I suppose.
So if someone's under that, they're not going to last very long.
No.
And a lot of these are going to turn into essentially body recoveries.
Yeah, if we have an incident like this, it would probably get switched to a recovery actions quite quickly.
Now, a lot of times people are out and they're digging these holes and they don't realize how fast this can happen. And that's what all this training's for. Then is just for those
specific excavations that aren't following the OSHA standards. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that anything your waist or deeper is considered a trench. If it is deeper than it is wide,
it's a problem.
It's a problem.
This is Truck of the Month, and this Truck of the Month is USAR 8, specially designed to handle all your trench rescue needs. And with us talking about USAR 8 is one of the USAR captains out at Station 8, Captain Jason Skiebout. And Jason, you've been out doing USAR for quite a while out there, haven't you?
Yeah, I was at Station 8 as a firefighter, a driver, and now as a captain for a couple of years.
Holy smokes.
You bet.
I like retire out of there, too.
You never know.
Talking about this truck, what's the capabilities of this truck, and why do we have it? What's the background for having USAR 8?
USAR 8 started about 8 or 10 years ago. This truck was actually donated to us. Mm-hmm. It carries all of our trench rescue supplies, and it carries some of our structural collapse supplies.
So anytime we have a trench rescue, this truck is just automatically rolling?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It's an automatic dispatch. It's cross-staffed with firefighters from Rescue 8.
So Rescue 8 USAR, the troops on Rescue 8 just take both trucks and then they're ready to deploy out anywhere.
Yep. other rescue trucks in the city will meet us at the scene.
Okay, now talk about this truck. What do we got in here? I mean, we got a whole bunch of stuff. Did all the stuff that we have out here come out of this truck?
Everything you see out around the hole has come out of the truck.
Except the whalers.
Except for the
big
except for the
I-beams.
new I-beam whalers. Those hopefully will be on here someday.
You must pack this stuff in pretty tight.
It is very crowded. We're actually looking at a new truck with about twice the carrying capability.
Oh, that'll be great.
The cubic space will be about twice as much.
So it carries all the wood. Does it also carry all the, because I know we have saws out there, we have hammers, we have nails, we have a lot of hand tools all packed in here?
Yes, it carries all our hand tools. It carries all of our Airshore, our Paratech air strut equipment, and it has a Raker Shore kit on it, all built out of aluminum. It carries a generator, a couple chainsaws, our power saws, lots of supplies of nails, hammers, tool pouches, tape measures.
Must be when you open the doors, everything must just fly out of this thing.
Well, we try to keep it as organized as possible because
It's going to be a high-stress environment if something happens.
On the normal situation, most of the truck would be unloaded like you see here, and we would make a tool staging around the truck.
When we looking in the back of this truck, it just seems like it just looks like a kind of a junior lumber yard back here.
Yeah, there's a little bit of organization here. We have our skip shores down in the bottom. We have our 8x8 whalers to the left, and we've got some miscellaneous 2x4s, 4x4s, and 2x6s up above there, and we have some more 4x6s down to the right.
So these crews need to really know when you say I need an 8x8, if I need whatever you want, strong backs, it's not a, well, Captain Skibout, can you tell me what is that thing? They just have to know exactly what it is and be rolling to get it.
Yes, yep.
Some of the most popular questions involve paramedics and ambulances. So we're going to nail out some of those questions. And this first question comes from Ronald, and Ronald lives in Montezuma, Georgia. That sounds like a unique place to live, Ronald, but I'm glad you're watching our show. Ronald wants to know, are paramedics part of the fire department, or are they part of a different department? Well, Sioux Falls Fire Rescue, all of our firefighters are basic EMTs. They have to be basic EMTs to have a job at Sioux Falls Fire Rescue. We also have some people that came to our organization and they're paramedics. We have several nurses on the fire department, but the way we operate is they operate in the role of EMTs. So they're not working as paramedics in our department. We're going to have another question. We're going to answer that on who provides paramedic service. So, Ronald, there's your question. This question comes from Aaron. Aaron lives in Chicago. Aaron wants to know, are ambulances part of Sioux Falls Fire Rescue? Well, they're not. We have a contracted service, and we're going to talk about that. I'm going to introduce Tim Rave. Tim Rave works for Rural Metro Ambulance. Tim's been on the job for 15 years, and we go back a long way. We've spent more time together than probably most people want to. And Tim, tell us exactly what's your job with Rural Metro.
I'm operations manager here, Jim, and I also am a paramedic.
And Tim is?
A state representative here in South Dakota.
You can't get better guests than on Fire Call, so that's why we got Tim with us. Now tell us, how does this system work with Sioux Falls and Rural Metro?
As you described a little bit before, we are a two-tiered system with basic life support, first response, and advanced which is the fire community, and advanced life support as the second response and transporting units, which is Rural Metro Ambulance.
And this isn't an uncommon thing. I know large cities like San Diego have similar arrangements.
Very much so, very much so. It's not uncommon. There is, every combination of a public utility model to fire service only to private and public together and any variation thereof.
And this is basically, we just have a contract with Rural Metro to provide that service.
The City of Sioux Falls has a contract with Rural Metro to provide advanced life support service to the community.
Perfect.
Correct.
Okay, last question on this series, and this one comes from Chris. Chris lives in Des Moines, Iowa, kind of a neighbor, and he has a long question, but basically he wants to know, when we have a call here in Sioux Falls, you'll see fire trucks and you'll see ambulance showing up. Chris wants to know, why do we have all these rigs? Why do we have fire trucks showing up and then we have ambulance showing up? Why not just ambulances?
Absolutely. Just like we talked about before, we have a two-tiered system, and so the fire department with more resources is more spread out throughout the community, gets a basic life support, EMT gets that care there quickly.
And basically that quick defibrillation for cardiac arrest and CPR.
Exactly. And some oxygen therapy if applicable, and et cetera. And then to get the scene stabilized a little bit, and then the transporting or advanced life support service comes in later and provides either a more elevated level of care, or if that's not necessary, transport if the situation calls for it.
Now, when we talk about paramedics and advanced life support, really that boils down to just a couple of really important things. Could you describe those when we talk about IV therapy and advanced airways? Just real basic now.
Sure. A couple of the major things, just like you talked about, advanced airways, and that's what we call endotracheal intubation, and that's putting a breathing tube down into the throat to breathe for the patient. You can use a bag to assist them to breathe, and it really protects the airway. It's kind of the golden airway. Mm-hmm. You talked about IV therapy, and although that itself is not a technically advanced skill, the medications that you give through the IV line to either stabilize the patient or correct a medical condition can be quite advanced, and so that's the level above the basic life support.
And is there anything else that we missed?
Things
like pacing.
Pacing, although cardiac pacing is another advanced skill, and I'm trying to think of a couple other ones.
So those require more training, higher level of care, and then oversight for those skills.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, I hope those answer all your questions. And Tim, I'm just glad you could make it. And
thanks for having me on.
We'll see each other again.
You bet. Take care.
This last question comes from Will, and Will lives in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And he wants to know, where's fire headquarters? Will, it's right here at the corner of 37th and Minnesota. This is a spacious Sioux Falls Fire Rescue Headquarters. Houses not only the fire chief, fire marshal, division chiefs, also houses fire prevention, attached to fire station number 3. So this is a nerve center. This is where all the decisions are made. This is where it all happens. Thanks for your question, Will. And we got some shout outs. Now, kind of wrapping down the show, we always try to get a couple of shout outs. Now, some of these shout outs are from several months ago. This first shout out is from Jordan, and Jordan lives in Greenwood, Indiana, and he wants a shout out to the Franklin, Indiana Fire Department. Jonathan from Holly, New York wants a shout out to the Holly Volunteer Fire Department in New York, where he's a firefighter. And our last shout out is from Andrew. Andrew lives in Corona, California, and he wants to give a shout out to the Los Angeles County Fire Department. If you see Dr. Frank Pratt out there in LA County, he's the medical director, tell him his buddy from Harvard says hi. Well, that was a great show, and I tell you what, seeing some of that stuff that the Army provides, it was just wild. And I sure liked hanging out with the guys that are doing trench rescue. Your questions are really making the show happen. And if you want to get a T-shirt, you send in a question. Now these T-shirts look just like this, and they're not only sassy, they're kind of swanky, and you just look good in them. You got to send a question in or a shout out, and if we use it, we'll send you a T-shirt. And we've also had a lot of requests for size T-shirts. And I got some different sizes in, so put down the size you want, and if I can get it, I'll get it, and if not, just tough luck. Use hot water and shrink it down. I hope you enjoyed the show. I had a great time. My name is Division Chief Jim Sideras, and you've been watching Fire Call.